So I end up phoning Lee Brown. And I said, Lee, I got your number from Panache, and I was wondering if I could come to visit. I was going to go visit my sister. Now, this man, my sister lives in Penticton in BC, and this man lived not like half an hour from my sister. On a video that I saw in Alaska, Toronto, how can this be possible? I didn't even know where he was. I thought he was in the States. So he says, well, we can't do that. I said, Lee, I said, I've, I've got to meet you. He said, well, I'm busy. I said, I know, and I really don't want to impose, but I'd like to meet you. He said, okay, we'll meet in Vernon. I said, okay, well, which is not too far from his home. I said, well, Lee, I've got to come to your house. And there's a pause, and he said, okay, this is where I live. So I took my Thunder Drum, and I went to see Lee Brown. And when I got there, he was some pissed off. Because this lady who I went to see is she was kind of messy and a little dysfunctional at the time. So I think he didn't have a big respect for that and what was going on. And I offered him tobacco. And here I am, a pale guy offering him tobacco. And I don't know what's up. I don't know who Lee Brown is. And he says, come, help me with my bunk bed. So I'm at his house. And by the way, I got lost on the way. Don't I look good? And I get into his he's making these bunk beds for his kids. And he said, what have you come here for? And I said, well, Lee, I don't know. I think I've come here for a ritual. And he said, why don't you go to the Catholic Church? I said, Lee, because I'm always sticking my foot in my mouth, I thought, I better check. I hope you're not Catholic, but I'm looking for a real ritual. Not Catholicism. And so we finish making the bed. He doesn't say much. We go into the living room, and the tobacco's sitting on the tabletop, and he says, we sit down, and he looks at me, he says, well, how do you feel about the world? I said, geez, I've got a lot of hope. I got a lot of hope for the world. And he looks at me and he says, well, I got no hope. And then I lost it. And I said, well, get out of my way. I said, I'm sick to death of you people. And if you want to help me, help me. But if you don't want to help me, get in line, man. Because all I know is I've got to help the children of hope. That's what I know. And if you want to help me, great. If you don't want to help me, get out of my way. And then suddenly he's taking the tobacco and trying to light it in the shell, and it won't light, and then he throws the whole thing into the fire, and he says, come, we'll go smoke a pipe. I'm going, what the hell just happened? Because something had just come through me. It just went just with such force. And in that moment, I didn't even entirely knew what happened. So I went with him, and I said, can I take my drum? And he said, sure. And then we got the kids, and then we were sitting, singing and drumming, and there was this domey thing behind me, which I found out later was a sweat lodge. But at that point in my life, I had no fargan idea what that was. And there was a fire, and I thought, okay. And I was trying to sing, and we smoked a pipe, and it was pretty sacred. But I was more worried about tobacco smoke because I'm allergic to it. So we get up and we're walking through we finish the sacred event, and he turns to me and he says, don't worry, it won't hurt you. Oh, I said, okay. And we sit down and we talk a little more, and I talk about the spirits, and I talk about his spirits, and then he tells me not to talk about that because I can see them. And I think, okay, well, my apologies. And then he sees me out to my car, and I'm about to walk through his gate, and I turn and I say, Lee, one day I will talk. Please come. He goes, what? I said, Lee, one day I will talk. Please come. What? One day I will talk. Please come. And then I walk through to the car, and I think to myself, what am I on? I could not believe it. It sort of just blew me away. From the Rock to Lee Brown to a ceremony, I didn't even have any idea where it was leading me. With the Thunder Drum, and I had no perception of what that was, given to me and made by an Ojibwe man in Ontario. Where was this taking me?